Is ascension still possible? Well, here's how the controllers are trying to hook us into their lower timeline. Don't fall for this trap. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I work together with an interuniversal, interdimensional, and extraterrestrial force known as Telstar, along with Archangel Michael. And if I seem more relaxed in this video, it's because my braces are finally off. So yay for that. It has been really difficult trying to talk with those things on my teeth. You guys have no idea. Okay, so now let's get into it. There are two ways in which we can view our situation at this time. One way is to look at it from a higher perspective of human evolution, and the other way is to look at it only from the level of the physical. Now, our physical world is fraught with pitfalls and traps of every kind designed to keep us on a lower timeline. And it's very difficult to navigate our ascension only from a physical platform, because it's really difficult to know who and what to trust. Now, ascension is another word for accelerated advanced evolution. And we have that opportunity right now as long as we don't lose our focus on that primary goal. Now, there is a great deal of light on this planet right now, but there is also a great deal of darkness. The darkness is represented by the fact that technology has gotten so advanced that the controllers of this planet are now ready to implement their final endgame for humanity. They can do this because the advancement of AI technology allows them to do so at a level never before seen on this planet. Their endgame is for everyone to be re-engineered as a combination of AI and biology, where AI can completely control our thoughts and behaviors. In other words, they want to re-engineer us into a totally synthetic species. This is something they've been planning for many, many years. This is, of course, an abomination when it comes to the natural universe and to our natural planet. AI technology is literally the manifestation of an attempted alien extraterrestrial takeover of our planet. But we don't see that because we've been told there's no such thing as extraterrestrials. We've been lied to and told that we are the only life form in the entire universe. So we erroneously believe that this technology is native to our planet, which it is not. Now, the intensification of light on this planet now is to support us in continuing on our natural path of evolution as biological humans and not fall for this alien AI agenda. So there is a lot of light to support us, but in order to receive that support, we need to listen to our hearts and understand the full magnitude of what is going on so we have a more realistic context for our lives. Now let's take a moment to review the difference between a higher natural timeline and a lower AI timeline. The higher natural timeline is where we enlist our natural intelligence and stay closely connected to our hearts while making a very sincere effort to evolve into higher states of consciousness. The power of that natural synergy is what will manifest a more beautiful human civilization on this planet. This higher timeline also functions in concert with the larger evolving universe. All natural evolution occurs as an upward spiral of energy that maintains the highest possible frequency of light and love. So because we are natural beings, it is clear that we need to be aiming for that higher natural timeline. Now let's talk about the lower AI timeline of the controllers. This timeline is entirely artificial. It is completely divorced from the natural world. It honors nothing about nature and instead seeks to replace nature with a fake synthetic version of itself. Those who choose this lower timeline will cease to evolve and instead will find themselves to be completely controlled by alien forces using artificial intelligence. So the higher timeline is all about expansion and evolution, and the lower timeline is all about suppression and control. Right now, there is a battle on this planet over which timeline humanity will end up on. And the end result of that battle has everything to do with humanity itself and the choices that are made on a collective and individual level. In the past 2 years of 2020 and 2021, we experienced a great awakening on this planet where millions of people woke up to the fact that we have been lied to about nearly everything. They realized that the people in charge really don't have our best interests in mind after all. People began to realize that we are living inside of a very destructive agenda. Once 2022 arrived, that destructive agenda was unleashed even more with a massive new war. Now, I do not believe that this war needed to happen, yet we have watched politicians and the media pushing for this war 24/7. Think about this. In a war, the wealthy get richer and the rest of humanity suffers. Here is what is likely going on behind the scenes of this war and every other war that's been started by the controllers. The corporations and the government contractors who make all the weapons, they make a fortune whenever they start a new war. These are the same people who just so happen to finance the politicians' election campaigns. I think it's a really sick kind of symbiotic relationship where the politicians have to agree to promote war in order to keep that gravy train of campaign dollars flowing. And we'll never know what other deals they might be agreeing to under the table. And since the same corporations are also in ownership of the media, well, this all works out really great for them. These people do not love humanity. They see humans as something to be used and discarded in order to achieve their own ends. Now, there are other geopolitical reasons for this war as well, but let's not get into that right now, because there are more important things that we need to be thinking about if we want to ascend. Right now, it's clear that the controllers are doing everything in their power to keep us locked into a lower timeline. And unfortunately for a lot of people, this is working out quite well. So now I'm going to explain to you their secret underlying strategy to keep us locked into that lower timeline. And I'm pretty sure you've never heard anything like this before. And this is probably coming from an extraterrestrial level, because I doubt that the human controllers could figure this out. Let's start by looking at the physics of fear and anger. A lot of people think that love is the opposite of fear, but the truth is that love has no opposite. It is omnipresent. The opposite of fear is anger. And now I'm going to show you exactly how that works. We can understand the physics of fear and anger by observing how our own bodies react to these energies. When a person is afraid, they withdraw, they shrink, they become paralyzed. All of their energy is pulled within in an effort to protect themselves. Their breathing becomes very shallow. On the other hand, when a person is angry, they lash out, they attack. Their energy moves outward in bursts of attack. So you could say the energy of fear is in and the energy of anger is out. So you could therefore say that fear is a negative version of yin energy and anger is a negative version of yang energy. So fear and anger together produce a negative magnetic polarity. In other words, as energies go, fear and anger are like magnets to each other. Wherever you find fear, you will find anger close behind, even if that anger is repressed. And wherever you find anger, you will definitely find an underlying fear. So fear and anger are two sides of the exact same coin. They need each other in order to exist. Now let's take a fascinating, deeper look at how the controllers are using the energy of fear and anger to control us. Pay close attention to this. If they can get us firmly anchored in the twin energies of fear and anger, then they can successfully anchor us to their lower timeline. Now, 2020 and 2021 was when they unleashed the first phase of their larger plan to move humanity into an AI universe. For an entire 2 years, they embedded our collective consciousness with fear about the well-known virus. They used fear to get us to agree to shut down our entire lives and give them a chance to install their beginning systems of AI control. So the past 2 years were all about fear. Now think about the extreme energy of how that manifested related to what I said about the physics of fear. Our entire civilization withdrew and went within to stay in our homes. Our movements were basically paralyzed. We even withheld our own ability to breathe by wearing the masks. Do you see the parallels of how the energy of extreme fear manifests in our physical bodies and how it manifests in the same way collectively when civilization as a whole is filled with that energy? In both cases, you see extreme withdrawal from life. All of the energy is pulled inward. Now, it's pretty obvious that the platform of fear alone began to fall apart in 2022. By itself, fear was not sustainable for an indefinite period of time. See, in the end, it would not be enough alone to firmly anchor us into that lower timeline. That's because it needed its twin partner of anger to be put in place. Knowing that, isn't it interesting how fast the controllers dropped their platform of fear about the virus and immediately shifted it to one of anger about the war? See, they know they need to have us engaged on both sides of that coin on a collective level in order to make this whole thing stick. And again, I want to remind you that this is happening in the way I'm describing it from a higher level of negative intelligence that is behind the scenes pulling all the strings. The human controllers on this planet are not this smart. Now, it is seriously important to understand how this works energetically, because if we don't get this, they will succeed at anchoring us to their lower timeline. That's because they will have put in place both of the necessary magnetic polarities to hold us there in our consciousness. So I want to talk to you about this war in terms of the physics that I described about fear and anger. In the first 2 years of the controllers' plot against humanity, they needed a specific object of fear to get us focused on. And that was clearly that health issue. We had the image of that thing being put in our faces at every single turn in order to remind us to be terrified. And now that that first phase is over, they need an object of anger. And once again, they need for the whole world to be focused on that object. And in this case, that object would be the evil Mr. Putin and Russia. Now, I don't know much about the long history behind this war between Russia and Ukraine. Whether or not Putin is a really bad guy is not that important in terms of what I'm describing here. He probably is a bad guy, but so are many other despotic leaders in this world who are even worse. That is actually not the point when you get down to what really matters when it comes to how we're being manipulated. Now, here's something to notice about anger. It is impossible to be angry at someone without having a reason. You need to feel that they have somehow done something wrong in order to generate that emotion. So ask yourself this question. If you did not know that Putin had ever done anything wrong, would you be angry at him? I seriously doubt it because you wouldn't even have a reason to think about this person. Now, the controllers needed to gin up some serious anger in our planetary collective in order to complete the cycle of fear and anger and thus more firmly attach us to their lower timeline. So they had to make sure that we had a gigantic, big reason to be angry at Putin and Russia. And that would be the invasion of Ukraine and all of the horror that goes along with that. If you want to get down to the bare basics of what I'm talking about, then you can see that the controllers weaponized the existence of a virus as a target upon which to focus our collective fear. And then they weaponized the image of Putin as a symbol upon which to focus our collective anger. Both of these things were ideal symbols to maximize those two negative emotions on a collective basis worldwide. And that's because each of these symbols are gravely associated with a great deal of suffering and death. Now, the high-level controllers who are not on this planet understand this. They could not care less about the death, destruction, and suffering of human beings. Their main goal is to anchor us to their lower timeline of AI until we reach a point of no return. They have zero interest in natural humanity or in natural evolution. Their only goal is total control, which would ultimately be run by AI. And that's why they're using the physics of the energy of fear and anger in order to accomplish this. So as you can see, our situation on this planet has multiple levels. And we, as starseeds, lightworkers, and awakening humans, need to be aware of all of these levels as best we can. We cannot afford to become players in the controller's drama. Now, at this point, they have most of the planet locked into alternating cycles of fear and anger. This is what we need to be most aware of because this is the energetic trap that will keep us off of a higher timeline. They are probably going to try to intensify these cycles while emphasizing one over the other. Right now, the emphasis is on anger using this war. And of course, there is always great fear when it comes to war. But on a collective planetary basis, the greater emphasis currently is mostly anger at Putin. But I won't be surprised if they have a new cycle after this one that will mostly emphasize fear. Remember that fear and anger are always locked together. It's just a matter of which one they choose to emphasize. They want to press our collective consciousness deeper and deeper into that hole until we are so locked in that we can't get out anymore. So we need to be awake at a much higher level than ever before so we don't fall into this trap. Now, I want to mention one more very interesting thing about fear and anger. Each of these experiences needs a justification in order to exist. Fear needs to be justified and the anger needs to be justified. That's very different from love, which needs no justification whatsoever. Love is the one thing that can stand entirely on its own. Now, we already know all of the ways that they used to justify terror about the virus. And it's easy to see how they can justify anger and fury about the war in Ukraine. All they have to do is show us countless images of the suffering, the death, and destruction there, and that obviously pulls on everyone's heartstrings. But the question is, how are you going to react to that? You can react in anger, or you can react in love and compassion. And which one do you think is safer when it comes to staying on that higher timeline? See, here's something really, really important. The controllers want us to emotionally get on a war footing in league with Ukraine. They are beginning to introduce phrases like, Ukrainians are fighting for all of us. They're fighting to preserve freedom and democracy around the world. See, they're not saying this because they want you to feel compassion for the Ukrainians. That's not why they're doing this. This is about them unleashing collective feelings of violence and aggression towards Russia. Check out this interesting headline about Facebook. And another headline states, Russian attack on hospital stirs outrage. There are countless headlines like this stoking anger using very provocative words, promoting anger. Just like with the virus, there were countless headlines stoking fear. Now, this is not to say that we shouldn't feel anything for these horrible situations. Of course, it's natural to feel very deeply about what is going on. But you might notice in these types of headlines, they never talk about the victims and their suffering from a place of love and compassion for those victims. They're actually using their suffering in such a way that they want you to also use the suffering of these poor people in Ukraine and in Russia. They want you to use their suffering as a platform from which to unleash your anger. So they present these stories to you very specifically in that way. They are really, really good at this kind of manipulation. So we need to stay in full command of how we respond to this war emotionally. We need to understand that the controllers will do everything in their power to manipulate our emotions into the lowest possible vibration of misery, fear, anger, and hopelessness. Pay attention to the fact that they never ever offer encouragement of any kind. It's always doom and more gloom with no end in sight. They will engineer whatever horrors they need to in order to provide the evidence that they need to keep us at that lowest vibration of fear and anger. The thing is, this is the only thing they're capable of. I mean, literally, this is all they're capable of. They don't have a wide range of capability when it comes to what we as human beings have as natural creators. They just don't have that. Their options are really, really narrow, and they're always pretty much what I've described here. So now we need to answer an all-important question for ourselves. Where is that higher timeline? It's an important question because there's not a whole lot of evidence of that currently manifesting on our planet. Now, the higher timeline definitely does exist, but it's not automatic. We as human beings need to strive for that higher timeline from within the depths of our hearts and our souls. We cannot afford to let these insane controllers decide where we are going to end up. Now, we have to approach this as individuals because we cannot control what the larger collective chooses to do in this regard. We can certainly contribute light and love into the collective and hold the space for an even greater awakening. But we're not going to be able to contribute anything if we also fall victim to the controller's trap of fear and anger. So I want to give you 7 quick, simple tips about how to stay out of that trap and keep yourself focused on that higher timeline. Number 1, you want to start with an extraterrestrial context instead of limiting your consciousness to being merely Earth-based. Realize that this planet has been under attack from an alien AI phenomenon that has been slowly enveloping this planet for a very long time. Number 2, know the difference between this enemy and the truth of your human self. Consult with your heart to see this as clearly as possible. Number 3, stay firmly connected to nature and to the natural earth. Take regular conscious breaks from the news and from screens. Number 4, focus on moving your personal life to the highest possible experience that you can given your current circumstances. Don't be reluctant to find happiness because you feel guilty that so many people are suffering on this planet. Your light and high vibration serves to add positive healing energy to a very dark situation. Number 5, strengthen your spiritual connection to the universe, to God, or to whatever higher experience of love has meaning for you. Number 6, don't let the controllers manipulate you emotionally. If you are in direct contact with anyone who is being affected by this war, extend yourself in love and support and don't fall victim to anger. Remember that taking sides in this war puts you in danger of becoming a part of that energy, which is exactly what the controllers want. And when it comes to that previous pesky health issue, don't judge people who don't agree with you on that issue. It's just not worth it. And number 7, always remember who you are and why you're here. You are a creator who is meant to naturally evolve in this universe. Don't let this alien AI force subvert that primordial intention. Stay connected to your heart and hold your own in this spiritual battle for the souls of humanity. That's what will keep you linked to a higher timeline of natural evolution. The controllers of this planet use every tool they can to steer our thoughts and emotions. So take back the steering wheel of your life. Think about how you can continue to evolve in this situation. Use your powers of manifestation and create a better life for yourself and for those you love. This will maintain your life at a high vibration, which will also allow you to stay in resonance with a higher timeline. And that's the goal, to maintain the highest possible level of energetic resonance with the natural evolving universe. And that is what will keep you on an ascension path. So if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with as many people as you can so we can help people learn how to free themselves from the controller's manipulation. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and hit that notification bell because I am here every Tuesday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you loads of love, light, and high vibrational energy. And I so look forward to seeing you in the next video. Namaste.